What a playoff week.
One of the best stat lines I've seen.
Just a hell of a change. We've got a race going now.
Home runs, that's not out of the question.
Very strong numbers.
That's something to be proud of.
Can actually gain a position. Oh, a lot of good games this week. It'll really gain some ground. Wrong answer.
Cowboy.
Welcome, BDL. We are back live from Raven, Virginia. The Pony Express rides again. And we've got a double starting here. This is the old house, and we want to welcome Scotty to the Pony Express.
What's up, my friends?
Oh, we're going to start an off season with the Pony Express. It's been quite a while since we've been on the air.
It's been 5 long years.
It's been too long. But it's about time we get things going again and get the old house up and running.
That's why we're here, gentlemen. To tell you what you're doing wrong with your teams.
That's exactly right, Johnny. I mean, league. We're going to get a few things going. We're going to have some interviews.
Interviews?
Yes, we may be interviewing.
Pony Express doesn't conduct interviews.
We may do some interviews with a new champion.
What?
We may talk about some things that's going on in the league that we think needs to happen and don't need to happen, and in the upcoming new year of 2020, what kind of trades need to be made, don't need to be made, who needs to do something, and who don't.
We'll get to all that by February.
Absolutely, absolutely, or sooner, Johnny.
So we've got a new champion, and it's been quite the ride with Mr. Matt of the Carolina Cardinals, pretty much putting the rest of the league on notice for the last 24 months as to this is actually his league. We are all his bitches, and that's sort of the bottom line and where we are in the state of the BDL.
Oh, that's pretty much. Matt has ran roughshod pretty well over the league. He's made some hell of a good trades. He's been pushing all the right buttons to be a new guy to step in and simply do what he's done in a short period of time. That's making us old guys look pretty bad, you know it?
Who would have thought the guy who Connor Glassey taught to play fantasy baseball could actually play fantasy baseball well?
Connor Glassey. Haven't heard that name in a while.
We buried that name.
I think he fell in the Pacific out there somewhere.
I thought he was in Ohio.
I thought he was in Portland. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought he was fishing for them.
Oh, no, he went to work for the Indians on the West Coast. Yes?
Yeah, I think that's the last I remember. He was
West Coast Scout.
Yeah.
Why are we talking about Connor?
I have no idea why you brought that up. I do not know.
Let's talk about Bill.
Bill.
Speaking of the playoffs, which have...
Bill, I think he's one of the homeless down in San Francisco, ain't he? He will be homeless now after he got his butt kicked by Mr. Matt.
Bill, what are you doing, buddy? 10-0 in the playoffs. That's rather unlike you.
I bet, and he didn't even win saves. That's really says something.
Well, he won nothing whatsoever.
No, Bill. Okay, you were my hero. You remember that old song?
I do.
Yeah. Well, we're looking for some stuff out of you there, Bill.
Yeah, that was. I feel quite sure the Damage have won 3 championships in the history of the league, and so there have been several playoff defeats Bill has had to endure along the way.
But he's never missed them.
I can't recall a shutout.
No.
Before for
No,
Bill.
no,
So
that's a first.
That's got to be a new feeling.
We might see some I say we might because he always says it's rebuilding time, but we'll see if he's going to rebuild or what's going to happen there in NorCal.
And he says that, but I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that too. But I'm sure he's got some players that are ready to explode onto the scene.
They're ready to explode, all right.
Well, if you get a trade offer, they're going to be ready to explode, according to him. Sorry, Bill, I had to say that,
Well, that victory was what shot the Cardinals into a second round matchup with the Wallabies. And let's talk about the Wallabies for a second. Actually, well, not really the Wallabies because I'm not over my hiatus of speaking of the Wallabies yet. But
yes, you are having a problem with that.
In reference to the Wallabies' first round matchup of the playoffs that we have just concluded, we just got through watching. They dispatched the Rockland Rockets 6-3-1 there in the first round, and I'm not sure what, I have a ton of respect for Mike as an owner. He's had some really disappointing seasons these last 2 or 3 seasons, and really, the teams that he has managed to build and put together, I would have thought would have resulted in at least a finals appearance at some point over the last 3 years, but he's sort of developing a bit of a habit of being an early exit in the playoffs, even as good as his teams are. So where do you think this leaves the Rockets?
I would have thought the same thing, and if as bad as the defeat was for the damage, the hurt that Mike had to feel going out again like that had to be worse.
Especially
it had
jettisoned
to be
by the woeful Wallabies.
Yeah, well, everybody thinks everybody in the South is just a pile of crap to begin with, and I think that hurt Mike a lot more than Bill. Bill just packed up and went down to the Southern California beaches or the streets of San Francisco. Mike, that hurt him a whole lot. I think that was that was a big blow for him, considering his team and what he's put into it, and Mike's always working on it, and he's always trying to improve it in one way or another. Not that it always works, but it don't always work with everybody what you do to it. But
Mike alleges he's taking some real time off this offseason.
Don't believe it. Don't believe
his thoughts and sit around a campfire and
he'll be sitting around a campfire looking at players.
Whatever, but I don't know that I see that. That's not something that's really in his DNA.
Mike's mama's going to be smacking him, telling him to put the iPad down and quit looking at players.
Among other things. Moving on, though, again, staying in the first round, I guess another disappointment that I see. Let's talk a little bit about the elevation. And Ort's a great manager. He had that high point there a couple seasons back where he made a run to the finals against yours truly. Didn't get the job done, of course, but first round exit here. Where do you think the elevation stand going into 2020? Are they on the way up, on the way down? It's probably not. We won't say it's an embarrassing defeat, given the fact that they were taken out by one of the eventual finalists. So there is that. Scottsdale Scorpions went on to, of course, face the Cardinals in the finals. But what does Ort look like right now, or the elevation rather?
The elevation has been and always will be a very good playoff team. He knows how to keep his team together, and the one thing you have to say about Ort. Now, a lot of them don't like streaming the pitchers in and out and doing. That's as legal a rule as there is.
Sure.
And he does it to perfection. Now, it don't always work, but he's there every year. He's always a contender, and he's always right there for the playoffs. And he's kind of like the Oakland A's in Major League Baseball. you don't really think about him too much, but then when you look up, there he is. He's there. And you think, where the hell did he come from? That's Ort. And he's always competitive. He's always right in the mix and everything. So, and I think he'll do the same thing next year and the same thing the year after. He'll make just enough trades to be competitive and be there. One of these days, he's liable to just kick the door down.
Pretty good comp. In looking to it, our other first round matchup, the Amish and the Redbirds, I want to focus a little bit more here on the Amish. Kind of looking at that club as kind of similar to the Rockets. Although, of course, they did win their first round matchup this year, but were dispatched in the second round to the Scorpions fairly handily. That was a 7-2-1 victory for the Scorpions in round 2 against the Amish. And, let's just ask the question and get it out there. Is Joe ever going to win anything in this league?
No.
Well, there you have it, folks. And we're done.
Sorry, Joe. Joe, I love you to death, dude. I've got a half a gallon of Jim Beam here. Come on over. Don't hate me. Joe puts together a really good team. And he had a good team this year. It just seems like when Joe runs up against somebody, it just don't go his way. I don't really know what to tell you. Joe had a team this year that could have went all the way to the finals and could have won the finals.
Well, for the last couple seasons, or 3.
He has.
Really.
He's had a good team.
Kind of been on that same arc as the Rockets have been.
Yes. Joe has had a really good team, and he's had good teams. He's put together good teams, and Joe will say, well, I'm going to tear it down and build it again. And he has done that before. He's tore it down and built it right back. Joe's good. But it just seems like he gets to the top of that hump and he just can't slide over the top and go down the other side. Joe will be back next year. He'll be good again. And every week, every day, he will tell you he's got 87 people on the disabled list and he's mad as hell and he hates baseball. But Joe will have a good team and he will be hard to beat. He will be right there. I think Joe makes good trades. Joe knows what he's doing.
Few and far between as they are, yes.
Yes.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Well, we saw, the Wallabies and the Amish Brotherhood both take losses there in the second round, which created our BDLCS matchup this year of the Scottsdale Scorpions and the Carolina Cardinals. The Cardinals, of course, the eventual victors and were the 2019 regular season BDL champions. Now, we've talked a lot about the Cardinals, on the forum since that victory, and we'll do so for the remainder of this podcast. Really focus a lot on the Cardinals and what Matt has been able to do. But let me ask you a question. Are we undervaluing what the Scorpions are in the BDL?
Yeah, a little bit. He's put together a really good team. He could have actually won the championship.
It was the result, the 7-2-1 result was that, on paper, just that score is not reflective of the matchup.
Oh, absolutely not.
It was extremely close.
It was very close, right down to the last day. Yeah, just a little bit could have changed it. Matt did pull away a little bit right at the end. They both put up good numbers that could have probably beat anybody else.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot. We've talked a lot lately, about the rocket ship that the Cardinals and Matt have ridden, in the last 24 months in the BDL, and all of that's true. And that's not to say that anything we have discussed on the forum or otherwise or on the show about Matt is not true. It's all true. He's a shooting star right now. But we have this other club in the Scorpions that over the past 4 years have won a BDL championship and have appeared in a second BDL CS. Really one of the better, most consistently good teams that we have in the league right now. I mean, the juxtaposition of the Scorpions against, say, the backdrop of even my Generals, which, frankly, I wouldn't trade my batting order for anybody else's in the league. I was on the outside looking in on the playoffs this year, not even there. Scott and his Scorpions have really been just one of the true marks of consistency in the league since he entered the league. And that's a fact I don't think, especially in light of his second appearance in the finals here in a relatively short span of time, it's not getting enough attention.
I agree with you totally, and I think the Scorpions and the Cardinals, both of those teams, could probably hold pat with what they have right now and stay very competitive in the upper 2, 3, 4 of the league for several years.
Agree.
With what they've got. If they didn't make any moves, if they just held. Now, I don't think either one of them will do that. They will make moves. And they'll probably be good moves, knowing both of them. The Scorpions will still be one of the top teams. And it won't surprise me to see them right back next year where they were this year. And again, I mean, and Matt has mentioned this, injuries play a big part. If you lose one or two key starters, I'm a very pro pitcher person, and that can just about devastate it. That could happen, and that's where a manager owner comes in and tries to replace that. But he has done that in the past. He's made good choices, good trades. But yeah, I think he will be there.
Nevertheless, we would be remiss not to shower most of the confetti for this episode on Matt and his Cardinals for what they've accomplished, and
yes,
we have tried to do that, and we were able to pull in Matt for a few minutes on the Pony Express hotline here this month. So we're going to throw to our conversation with our new BDL champion, Matt and his Carolina Cardinals.
Yes, let's hear from Matt. Let's hear from the champ. Matt, welcome to the Pony Express. We're doing this from beautiful downtown Raven, Virginia. First time we've been back on here in a few years now.
Actually, I think the last Pony Express was 5 years ago.
That sounds about right.
Can't believe it's been that long.
It's been a while. Me and Scotty decided we would get this going again. We've got a brand new champion in the BDL, a first-timer, and we thought that would warrant getting this old girl up and running again. And I'll tell you what we'll do. I'm going to start off with a pretty simple question. Kind of easy one for you. You're the newest champ, and pretty simple. Just how does it feel to be the newest champ? How do you? I mean, you've wiped out some awfully good teams this year. So just kind of give us your opinion. How do you feel about it?
Well, first of all, I'm honored to be the first guest on the Pony Express reboot. What an honor. But as to your question, I would say relief was probably the most prevalent feeling, just because it's such a long season and the competition is so stout. When it was finally over, the Sunday night game when Zach Wheeler was cruising through his start against the Dodgers, it kind of all began to sink in that I'd won the championship.
Well, so Matt, while you've certainly made things, and by the way, welcome to the show again. While you've made things look, easy since entering the league 2 years ago, which we've all kind of talked about a lot lately on the forum, we all know, especially those who have been fortunate enough to be in that position, we all know that just making the finals itself is an incredibly hard task. So what did you find was the most difficult aspect about digging in your heels and just pushing forward toward that trophy?
Yeah, the playoffs in this format, it's really just a series of coin flips. You have to hope that your guys keep performing, at the level they have performed all season, and that's no guarantee. For instance, this year I went 5-5 against Memphis in one of the one of the periods, and they were the 15th team on the power ranking. That's the sort of thing that can happen in a playoff setting. You just don't know. So the biggest challenge is probably finding the players who are the most stable week over week and hoping they stay healthy and that good fortune continues to visit them.
Well, we've seen teams come up in the playoffs that all of a sudden have a hot week and really, give a top ranked team a lot of problems.
Chris, we're looking at you. And man, I don't want to overplay your spanking of the damage in the opening round of the playoffs, but it is worth a headline considering NorCal's history of excellence in the BDL, especially at playoff time when it matters. How confident were you about your chances to get the job done this year following that blowout?
I would say I still viewed it as a 50-50 proposition, just because I know that the teams in our bracket were very good, top to bottom. I think we had 6 of the top 9 teams on the final power ranking, the teams that I would be playing in the ACL side of the playoffs. So I viewed that as, if I was lucky, I could do it, but not at all a sure thing. And then, of course, the Scorpions in the other bracket, they were the class of the PCL all year. And, it was the same deal with them. I mean, he had, 2 DeGrom starts and a Verlander start, and they all, they pitched like the aces that they are. So that was already a big challenge to overcome just in the finals.
Matt, last year, you fell to the Bears in the championship series. Did that teach you anything, or did you learn anything from that to kind of help you this year, to steer you in another direction or in a different direction toward the championship this time?
Yeah, it really did. That's a good question. I think it was in the waning hours on the Sunday final day of the finals last year. Scotty posted on there that I lost by 1 win and 1 strikeout or something. Like, I think that would have tied our teams, and I had the tiebreaker. So I learned a lot about pitching depth with that defeat, just in the fact that the Bears had me outgunned in terms of starts in the finals, and I didn't want that to happen again this year. So I was able to load up on starting pitchers and had the start advantage for the finals.
That's always something that it's hard to predict that when if there was a key move that you made this year, transaction wise, that you'd say maybe help pave the way to lead to the championship in either a pickup or a trade, what do you think that might be or have been?
In retrospect, I think it was the trade I made with the Bears. Ironically enough, after period 3, I believe it was, I acquired Starling Marte and Charlie Blackmon, 2 very stable outfield assets who I think were roughly in the top 20 on the player rater. I'm not sure where they finished. But I had to sacrifice a lot of future value to get them, including Max Kepler, 1st and 2nd round picks, Nate Pearson, and Spencer Howard. So that was a pretty, from that point forward, my team started performing better. So I viewed that as the key transaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Matt, at the risk of burying the lead a little too much here, let's let's talk briefly about the fact you've just concluded probably it is the single most impressive season in the history of the BDL. And as a two-time champion, a three-time Ripken winner, and a three-time regular season champion myself, I know a little bit about what impressive seasons look like, to pat myself on the back. Yeah, you're the first and only owner in BDL history to this point to pull all three of those accolades together in 1 year. So, how on earth, over the span of 2 seasons, did you take what was a mediocre club at the time and become our first Triple Crown GM?
Wow. Probably, let's see. I view the two biggest factors as let's call it a willingness to trade future value for present value. Here's a partial list of prospects that I've traded, that I have acquired and subsequently traded. Royce Lewis, Nate Pearson, Austin Meadows, Wander Franco, Chris Paddock, Alex Kirilloff, Christian Robinson, et cetera, et cetera. I traded Ozzie Albies and Josh Hader to get Aaron Nola. I think that the biggest factor is probably that the willingness to kind of swap future value for present and kind of move up that timeline. And kind of as I was rebuilding the club, they were mediocre, as you said, but I think they had just kind of done a fire sale before I acquired it, which was bad from a present value standpoint, but good from the standpoint that it added extra draft picks to my team. So that helped.
Sure.
That helped quite a bit. And in 2018, phase one of the kind of rebuild was adding that pitching depth, which my team sorely lacked. I had Patrick Corbin and nothing else. So I traded for Nola and Mike Clevenger and Zach Wheeler. And then this year I focused more on adding those offensive building blocks that I've mentioned, the Marte and the Blackman, Justin Turner, Marcus Semien, Matt Chapman, guys like that.
Well, you certainly didn't come in the worst situation that we've ever seen for a rebuilding club in the league, but I still, the speed with which you turned that situation around is a little bit breathtaking for what we've seen historically in the BDL. I mean, do you think you've how much of your future do you think you have sold off for immediate success, if any?
Oh, I think the prospects I traded were pretty good, but they're still prospects. You don't know that they're going to stay healthy and stay productive. In terms of
very good point. Very good point.
In terms of the ones who have already kind of bit me a little bit have been Austin Meadows and Chris Paddock. They've already returned major league value. Ozzie Albies is certainly a high quality major league player. Josh Hader, but I would, these are the sorts of trade-offs you make to try to go for it.
Oh, and I certainly don't mean to imply that you should have any regrets whatsoever. I mean, you've come away with the largest prize of them all, and you've done, what we all should be trying to do in this league, is, make those hard decisions to wrap your hands and your arms around that trophy at the end of the year. That's what this is all about. It's fun to collect prospects and to build your team and future cast and run mock lineups of what you're going to look like in 3 or 4 years. I mean, I do that all the time, but when push comes to shove, you got to produce. At least that's why I'm here. That's why I'm still involved, and clearly why you're involved.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. It's fun to wish cast and think about the guys, but we've all been around player development long enough that we know that prospects are suspects until they prove otherwise.
That's very true, and you get a lot of trade offers, and you get a lot of this. He's going to be good. He's going to be great. You never know what he's going to be until he's there.
Yeah.
So Matt, kind of switching gears a little bit here. Of course, as an editor for a national magazine dedicated to covering this game's up and comers, where I kind of want to put you on the spot a little bit. Other than yourself, based on your experience so far in the league over the last 2 years, who in the BDL has the best eye for prospects?
Okay, well, my initial reaction is that the Scottsdale Scorpions, I think, are the best in terms of acquiring the players before they break big, before they become more brand names. I think Scott does a really good job at lower level acquisitions. But I could point to there's a lot of individual pickups that I point to and have to commend the managers, and it really teaches me something about the sorts of players I should be targeting. Like, I think Johnny had Jeff McNeil as he was breaking out last year. That's a player who had done nothing virtually his entire pro career. Now he turns into a batting champion. Rockland is very good at prospect acquisition. Bill in my division, I guess I pay a little closer attention to the teams in my division. Bill is very good at picking up prospects. But for me, I think Scottsdale is number one.
Matt, you've been actually one of the most active in the forum over the past 2 years. Pretty well kicking Mike and Bill out of that position as far as moves, trades, and quite clearly love the BDL. What does it do to hold your interest? What keeps your interest up in the BDL?
I love the community aspect of it. Having played in other fantasy leagues and other simulation leagues, there's just no sense of continuity or camaraderie that way. It's just play your games and be done with it. And so this league is refreshing in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I like that it forces me to pay attention to player trends and player development trends, and kind of put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. Because the roster spots are valuable. You have to decide, is this one of the 50 guys I want to be owning right now? And I like that aspect of it.
That's pretty much, and I think most of the guys are sitting looking at who's in or who's out of the lineup right before the game start and switching, and that's showing a lot of interest when they're doing that.
Yeah.
What's something about the BDL after you got your feet wet that surprised you, that you didn't expect to happen, or just simply you didn't expect about the league?
Yeah, I mean, coming to this format, I had never played head-to-head. I had never played a Dynasty. Most of my background was simulation baseball, like Stratomatic. So kind of learning the ropes in terms of how this league functioned was a major challenge early on, and I didn't start particularly well.
You could have fooled everybody.
I mean, like for instance, in my first series of 2018, I didn't realize I could change my lineup every day. So I was just kind of humming along with the lineup I set, what I thought was for the entire period, and but things that surprised me, probably how quickly I could get into the thick of the race last year. In retrospect, my team made the finals, but it was fluky, and it was certainly no foregone conclusion at any point. I mean, I finished like 1 or 2 games ahead of the next team that would have been the wild card team. So I was kind of surprised at how rapidly you could erase a bad start. You could kind of claw your way back into the race.
I guess if you hadn't have made another run to the finals this year, whether or not you won, I probably would have agreed with you then that your run last year was a little fluky. That's really hard to do 2 years in a row. It's been done so few times in the history of the league, and I'm not saying there's not a some element of flipping coins, in head to head play, but a lot of it is being the kind of GM, the kind of owner where you put and you keep your club in a position to consistently compete all the time. And that's more than half the battle in my mind. So I don't, from that perspective, I don't think we can look back at even last year and say that it was a fluke now. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree with you that putting your players in a position to win is the most important thing. And I think my strength as a manager is probably making improvements around the margins is probably my best attribute. Just being able to, plug the holes that come up with a representative solution.
And Matt, we'll start to wrap up here. But I've always appreciated, or at least since we've been several years into the history of the BDL, we have really appreciated the sense of history and historical context that we have, and that we're able to kind of measure things by. And when you have operated for, what did I say? This was our 15th season.
Yes.
When you've operated that long as a single league and with more or less the same group of guys, give or take a few changes here and there, it really provides you with the opportunity to look at things through a different lens and provide some really neat context. But just kind of springboarding from that, our last repeat champion in the BDL was NorCal, your division mate, in 2010. That was 10 years ago next season. So my question to you, Matt, if we can just kind of make this our finale here, what do you think the Cardinals have to do in order to be the next repeat champion? What are your steps from here?
Staying healthy would be number one, because pitching injuries have been the death of many a team. I'm sure, especially come playoff time. If you lose a big starting pitcher, you might be making an early exit. So I would say health would be the biggest thing. Like there's always little areas on the team that can be improved, and I'll look at that this off season.
What are you looking to trade? Are you looking to improve bats, pitching?
Yeah, I would say middle infield.
Middle.
I traded.
Now, hold on.
Now, Johnny is going to hear this. You know what's going to happen. You will be getting trade offers very soon.
I'm pretty sure I offered you like 3 shortstops a month ago, and you said you would drop all 3 immediately if you took them off. No, I don't want to hear middle infield.
Well, I'm going to just preempt Johnny's trade proposal by saying Aaron Nola is not available. Yeah, to the point, like Kevin Newman and Tommy Edman were a couple of kind of waiver wire pickups for me who played well enough. They contributed in a few categories for me, but they can obviously be upgraded. That's my point.
Well, let me just drill down a little bit more on that question, if you don't care. Do you think right now, in your euphoria of having just won this championship, do you consider yourself the favorite next year?
No, I don't think you can view it that way, just because everybody's going to be trying to improve, and luck is such a factor in this format in particular.
Well, we've seen teams, and a lot of guys, and everybody does. So many pay attention to the power rankings, and then you turn around and you have a team that's 7th, 8th, 10th in the power rankings, all of a sudden will wipe somebody out at a different time. Anything can happen, even with some of the lower teams on any given week. We've saw that quite a bit.
For sure. What was the biggest upset this year in the playoffs? Probably Brent against Rockland, right?
Brent? It wasn't whoever beat Brent. No, Brent was destined to go down in flames like a wallaby doused in kerosene. That piece of trash.
Peter will love him.
I don't know if I wouldn't call your victory over the Damage an upset this year. No. But I'll just make a kind of a sidebar note that, seeing any team of Bills get blanked in the postseason to me is that's stark. That's noteworthy. That's something that does not happen in this league.
But now, Bill was very close to not even making the playoffs.
No, but he did.
He did.
As he always does.
But he was very close. So the run of the Big Bill could be getting very close to, who knows?
Well, he's dropped hints that he's thinking rebuilding. We'll see if
he's been dropping those hints for 10 years.
Bill rebuild. He says he's going to be gone for 2 months. He'll be back next week.
The way it played out is it was in the final week, my team defeating the Double Downs let Bill into the playoffs, and then we squared off. And
right.
What's interesting is I went back through the playoff brackets in the past, and I believe the last 10-0 playoff was NorCal defeating Baltimore, which I believe is the franchise I inherited, I believe.
You're right. Yep. And that I remember that series well. Yeah.
When closers are allowed to bat, then Bill will be back.
We should eliminate saves altogether. Who's with me? No one?
You know what I want to eliminate.
Oh, let's not bring that up again. Well, you're not talking about Bill, are you?
Oh, no. No, I wouldn't eliminate Bill.
Oh, he's the only other conservative in the league.
He's the only other conservative in the league besides me, so you can't get rid of him.
Well, Matt, we appreciate you taking a few minutes on this sunny Saturday morning, or at least it's sunny in Raven, to join us and talk a little bit about your championship and your incredible last 2 years here that this run you've been on in the BDL. We've not quite seen a new owner in the league like you in a very long time, and I know I think I speak for everybody in the league and certainly for everybody on this call that we're glad you're around. We're glad to have you. You're an asset, and we hope that you join the Wallabies in going down in flames next year.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's always fun to relive what has been the highest point in my BDL career.
Great.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
All right, we're back. Thanks, Matt, again for taking time to join us this morning and talk a little bit about your finals victory, your impressive last 2 seasons here in the BDL, and maybe what you can accomplish in the future. And we're glad you were able to do that, and we hope to talk to you again soon. It's great to hear Pony Express back on the air, Mark.
Oh, love to be here. Loved it. Hope you guys enjoy this. Take some time off work, hide in your cubicle or wherever it is you do it at work, and enjoy this one morning, afternoon. And we'll be back with you guys very shortly with another episode of the Pony Express.